I'm willing to do that. I'm willing to meet with Republicans and just, be honest about where I stand, where they stand. We can explain, and understand each other better. But I definitely think it creates a vacuum. And even if it's not a Democratic member, people can host community town halls. You don't need a member of Congress to host a town hall, and just host one without them.
I think that's one of the better ideas that Democrats have floated. And really, it's sort of Bernie Sanders who's led the charge. I'm sure you saw the images from his town hall, like 10,000 people showing up on a random day in Warren, Michigan. Just astonishing level of energy just because he's out there and basically signaling, like, we're going to fight.
Brian Tyler Cohen went on Breaking Points and had a great conversation with Krystal and Sagar about the Democratic Party, the future of the Democratic Party, and what we can do now that the Republicans are sort of not being advised to have town halls. Well, we should have them, right? And even if it's Democrats going and speaking openly with Republicans, like, let's make sure that we are the party of having the conversation in this time of craziness. It's a terrific conversation. I've done 2 videos on it. I want to check this out with you. I'll have some comments as we go, and then I want to know what you think in the comments section, but let's jump into it.
Joining us now is Brian Tyler Cohen. He's a YouTuber. He's had quite a bit of success recently, and we're very happy to have him here on the show. It's good to see you, Brian. Thanks for joining us.
Good seeing you too. Thanks for having me.
Brian, I am absolutely fascinated by the rise of your channel and of a few others. Not that you haven't been doing well in the past, but I think you will say it's just been an absolute deluge and a bonanza very recently. And I've been curious, why you think that you've had quite a bit of success as mainstream channels like CNN or MSNBC have had a decline in ratings. What do you think about your rise, about Midas Touch and others really blowing past many of these traditional media companies recently?
I think it's a testament to how kind of fed up most of this country is with the lack of any stable or long-term, value set from legacy media. I mean, we've seen, depending on who comes in to helm any of these networks, suddenly their strategies change on a dime, and we see them either tilt right, tilt left, go full bore to the center. But there isn't any long-standing guiding principles at these networks, and I think it kind of betrays that what they stand for is whatever they're told that they stand for. And there's a lot of false equivalencies. There's a lot of both sidesism. And back in the day when we didn't have any other alternative, that's all we've got, right? Yeah. But I think now, in an era where people can seek out content that's actually guided by some degree of longstanding principle, you guys are a testament to exactly that. I think people recognize that we don't have to just settle for media that decides what it is based on who becomes the new president or CEO that week.
Yeah. I think that one of the things that has been really different with Trump 2.0 among the Democratic base is their orientation both towards like MSNBC and CNN and also towards Democratic politicians themselves. I mean, back in 2016, it was nightly appointment viewing to watch Rachel Maddow. Like MSNBC was really sort of like the beating core of heart of the resistance. Nancy Pelosi and Adam Schiff were leading the charge. There was a sense like, okay, these guys are our guys. They're fighting for us. They're doing everything they possibly can. And we're all this sort of like unified army going to war against what we see happening here. And this time, you could tell it in the ratings. You could also tell it in the poll numbers about how Democratic voters are incredibly disenchanted with Democratic leadership in a way that certainly reminds me of the way Republicans felt about Republican leadership during the Tea Party era. Do you think that that's part of what's going on here? And to what do you attribute that level of discontent?
I think that there's 2 factions right now within the Democratic Party. I think that there is a faction that recognizes, and I would include myself in this faction, recognizes that we desperately need to fight against what we're seeing right now. And then there's another that I think is more focused on on risk aversion. And
yeah, I personally think it's crystal clear that we cannot afford risk aversion as a strategy right now, right? This is where it's landed us. I think this is why a number of people in the middle decided to, air quotes here, give Donald Trump a try because they were so put off by this play it safe risk aversion. Let's make sure that everybody feels safe, right? We need bold bold leadership, decisive leadership from the left.
And so it's kind of tearing the party in two sides, because you've got people who say it's like the moderate versus progressive wings, right? And so you have people who say, okay, we need to tack to the left and show some fight and push back against the worst excesses of this administration. And then you see the more moderate members of the party or of the wing who are saying, like, you know, it was the tacking left that got us into this position in the first place, and clearly America is having a rightward shift. And so I think that there's just some inherent conflict there, and as a result of that, the party seems rudderless. The networks that speak to Democrats kind of seem rudderless, and there's just this contradictory idea of where to go next.
Yeah, Brian, one of the reasons I really wanted to talk to you is I really do think you guys, Midas Touch and others, are like the beating heart of like the Democratic Party right now for the future. And the reason I'm curious, just as an outside observer, is how do you feel about leadership, for example? Like we have this, we can put on the screen, the Axios tear sheet guys, Democrats privately confronting their Trump speech disruptors and others. They're very focused on decorum. They're more risk averse, as you said. So how is someone like you, really rising influencer, I think, in the Democratic Party with the younger Democratic base, how are you feeling about Hakeem Jeffries, Chuck Schumer, Nancy Pelosi, and the tack that they've decided to take in the Trump administration now?
Well, I think what we need to do is figure out how to really optimize in this media environment. And that's something that we haven't been able to do before. I actually went to D.C. this past week, and I spoke to a lot of members of the Democratic caucus in the House and the Senate. And it was my effort really to try and convince them and persuade them about the importance of kind of embracing social media, recognizing the importance of getting content creators in, moving a lot of our attention and focus from legacy media, where we've spent so much of our time talking to an audience that is already largely bought in, instead talking to an audience that is, you know, not only bigger, because that's where social media audiences are, but also more persuadable. And look, to their credit, they were largely on board with all of this stuff. And so I think it's important. To try and shift a lot of the attitudes that have been cemented for a really, really long time in DC. And so that's kind of my focus right now, is to try and, insofar as I have any influence in this party, given what I do online, my focus right now is just trying to get a lot of people on board to change their habits in an institution that is as nimble as a cruise ship, basically.
Well, and as part of that trip, you were able to talk to AOC. Let's go ahead and take a listen to a little bit of what she had to say.
I'll just interject here really quickly and say those are both worth watching. He had a conversation with AOC, and he had a separate conversation with Jasmine Crockett. I did a video on both of those. You can find those on his channel, Brian Tyler Cohen's channel. I recommend it. I think they're both really interesting conversations.
Listen, if your representative is not doing a town hall, give me a ring. I mean, I don't know if an R+25 district would have me, but I'm always willing to be proven wrong. And I mean, I'll say it right here, right now. If a deep red Republican district wants to have an honest conversation, even if it's with someone they disagree with, I'm willing to do that. You know, I'm willing to meet with Republicans and just, you know, be honest about where I stand, where they stand. We can explain, you know, and understand each other better. But I definitely think it creates a vacuum. And even if it's not a Democratic member, people can host community town halls. You don't need a member of Congress to host a town hall, and just host one without them.
I think that's one of the better ideas that Democrats have floated. And really, it's sort of Bernie Sanders who's led the charge. I'm sure you saw the images from his town hall, like 10,000 people showing up on a random day in Warren, Michigan. You know, just astonishing level of energy, just because he's out there and basically signaling, you know, like, we're going to fight and here's something we can actually do. I know Ro Khanna said he's going to do town halls. Tim Walz has said he's going to do town halls. AOC saying she's going to do town halls. And it's been kind of interesting to me, the tactical or ideological valence of this moment, because one of the other big Democratic stars of the moment is Jasmine Crockett, who is not necessarily ideologically the same as Bernie Sanders. But I think there's such a base level excitement about these individuals simply because it feels like they're putting up a fight and because they do understand the attention economy and how quickly the news moves and how much you have to jump on it right at that moment and not be afraid of stirring the pot and not be afraid of creating some controversy.
100%. I mean, that's how this entire ecosystem works. And I think that you're exactly right in terms of the thing that people want to see is that you are willing to fight. And this doesn't necessarily, to your exact point, have to be like a progressive versus moderate. It doesn't have to be. You don't have to be a certain political persuasion. You don't have to land somewhere specifically on the ideological spectrum to be able to do this. People just want to see that you are there doing the job that they put you in office to do. And so that's why there's a lot of focus on these people who are actually getting themselves out there and showing that they're willing to have some fight. And it doesn't have, look, we're in a position right now where we're in the majority. We don't have to be relitigating Medicare for all today because it's not like any of that stuff is going to happen. But if you're going out there and you're saying, look, I'm here to make sure that your Medicaid is protected, to make sure that SNAP benefits are protected, to make sure that education funding or any healthcare funding or that veterans have jobs. If I'm putting myself out there showing that I'm willing to actually do the work, people are going to respond to that. It is precisely the unwillingness or inability of anybody in office to actually stick their necks out there and show that they're willing to fight. It is that same risk aversion that I was talking about before that people are actually tired of these days and kind of puts you in that camp of doing stuff that's safe and uncontroversial and like people don't want to see that. We're in a moment where democracy is at risk, where healthcare is at risk, where so much of what we hold dear is at risk. And if you're just going to kind of sit back, people are going to recognize that. So again, it doesn't have to do with how progressive or how moderate you are. It's just that you're putting yourself out there and that you're showing you're willing to fight. I
would love to see more of this happen. I think a lot of people would love to feel like they're actively part of a conversation. This administration, I mean, I suppose there's some people that have voted for this, but I think a lot of people felt like they voted it because they were disenchanted with what they were hearing from the left and they wanted some change, but this isn't the change that they signed up for, right? And they also don't feel listened to. They don't feel heard. Let me know what you think in the comments.